Right now I'm in the upland forest. This is where the amphibians spend most of their time. They spend their time underground, in mouse burrows, under rocks, under logs. And in the early spring, when the snow starts to melt and we get those first soaking rains, the amphibians come up out of the ground and they march in huge numbers on some nights towards the wetland. And now when they come down the hill, instead of walking up and over the busy road, what they do is they encounter this wall. When they hit the wall, they walk along the wall, which leads them directly to our amphibian tunnel. These retaining walls or drift fence are absolutely critical to the success of these crossings. They funnel the animals directly into the tunnel. This is the south tunnel. And the migrating amphibians emerge on the other side of the tunnel, on the wetland side, in one piece, which wasn't the case in the old days before the tunnel, and they head to the wetlands where they breed. So this wetland complex, known locally as the Heisinger Swamp, is the other absolutely critical part of the amphibians' habitat. This is where they lay their eggs in these fishless vernal pools, and where those eggs hatch and the young emerge and then make the same migration march the other way back up to the hardwoods where they spend the rest of the year. So when we designed these culverts, we wanted them to pass amphibians, but we also wanted to build them big enough so that other animals, mammals, could use them. We've been monitoring them with remote cameras ever since. We use a time lapse where the camera shoots one photo per minute during the migration period, and we scroll through those and we can count the number of amphibians that are going back and forth under these culverts. So I'm here today to change out the cameras. We found that the older cameras give off a slight infrared flash, which was actually startling some bobcats, and we saw them in our photos turning around. These newer ones, loaned to us from the Nature Conservancy, Fish and Wildlife, and VTrans, do not give that. They're called stealth cameras. So the reason the Moncton Road site rose to the level of needing an infrastructure fix like this is the fact that this is a regionally significant population. The big problem here is that there's a busy road in between the two pieces of their habitat. If this road was just a dirt road, it wouldn't be a big deal. We'd lose some amphibians during the migration, but the population would thrive. With a busy road like this, we were finding that over 50% of the animals were being killed during migration, and that was with a crew of maybe 6 people out here on a crossing night, counting them, but also moving them out of the way of traffic. That wasn't sustainable. This is a super busy road, and it's not conducive to having volunteers out here on a dark and busy night. The cars just zoom by here really fast. This project was a true partnership. It started with a grassroots effort from a local conservation commission and a regional watershed group, but it leveraged some VTrans federal highways money through the Municipal Assistance Bureau. It got a Transportation Alternatives grant, which really put this project in motion. After that, the project received money from U.S. Fish and Wildlife to support it, and then there were other fundraising, local fundraising campaigns. So it was a true partnership between state, federal, and local partners. The monitoring with these cameras that we've done for the past 4 years demonstrate that these culverts work. We've passed over 2,000 amphibians every year through these safely, back and forth. So hopefully this is an inspiration for other groups to get together with their federal partners, their local partners, their state partners, and find solutions together.
Getting across a busy interstate is easy, if you're a flying reindeer. But for earthbound species, that crossing can be dangerous, for man and beast alike.
Virginia is one of the worst states in terms of the number of deer vehicle collisions every year. So every year there's more than 60,000 crashes with deer in our state alone. They'll cause a lot of damage to your vehicle, and every year they cause at least a couple of deaths.
Bridget Donaldson is looking to change that. starting with 2 stretches of Interstate 64 in Albemarle County.
So at both sites, every year there were at least 7 crashes with deer, despite the fact that there was an existing underpass that they could use. We evaluated those 2 structures for 2 years. We had the cameras along the roadside, right adjacent to the structures, and then we also had cameras in the underpasses too. So we could tell how many wildlife and deer especially were using the underpasses versus how many would decide to not use it and cross the road. For the box culvert, we would see bears approach it, but they just would walk away. Deer were not a big fan of that dark box culvert either, so a lot of them hesitated and turned back.
Rather than use the existing underpasses, many deer would wander across the interstate. The Research Council addressed the problem by installing a fence for half a mile in each direction of the underpasses. The 8-foot-tall structure acts as a funnel, directing deer and other wildlife to the culvert and bridges, where they may safely pass under I-64. The early results show the project is a great success.
I'm so excited about what we're finding so far. There's only been 1 crash with deer at both sites. We're seeing over a 90% reduction already.
The fence is making 2 problematic stretches of highway significantly safer for motorists and saving a few bucks, in more ways than one.
Using the results of our study, we're hoping to find other locations that this could be applied in areas where there's a lot of hot spots of deer crashes, because it's cheap and it's incredibly effective. And it doesn't take very many deer crash reductions to make up for the costs of that fencing. Given what we're finding already, there's going to be a savings of well over $500,000 per site that's fenced.
I'm Lance Craighead. I'm director of the Craighead Institute in Bozeman, Montana. The Institute does scientific research with conservation issues in mind. The Institute is a partner with ARC Solutions, which is a nonprofit that is trying to promote safe wildlife crossings across highways. And one of the projects that the Institute is working with now, we're working with Doug Peacock and Save the Yellowstone Grizzly and the Park County Environmental Council. And we're looking at this existing underpass on I-90 near Mission Creek. And this is an area that wildlife is using currently, but it could be greatly improved with a little bit of fencing. So we're hoping that we can get interest in this with the Highway Department, Forest Service, BLM, Montana Department of Transportation, and put up some fencing to make it easier for animals to get through here. And we've had cameras up for a year. We've seen black bears cross under here. Local residents tell us at least 1 grizzly and a cub have come through here. There's wolverines in the area. And the whole goal is to make it easier for animals to get from the greater Yellowstone ecosystem up to the Crazy Mountains and further north.
Welcome to Jackson Hole. I'm Darren Martins. I'm the liaison between WIDOT, Wyoming Department of Transportation, that is, U.S. Forest Service, Federal Highways. The project we're at is Jackson South. We're looking at one of the 8 crossings in this 8-mile-ish corridor. We have 3 bridge extension projects, 3 undercrossings, and 2 aquatic passage structures on this job. This one here is unique in that it's connecting all of it connects 2 mountain ranges, but we have this natural drainage over here that funnels wildlife in, and this happens to be a very low area in the river, the Snake River in front of us. The crossings in this corridor we planned it for about a mile and a quarter or less between them, so wildlife can find the openings and get across. what it's going to be from the construction now. This is a 3, 4, 5-lane highway, so it's kind of traversing from Quebec Junction, where it's 3 lanes, going to 4, 5, here all the way into Jackson. Jackson is that direction. And Chris is going to get into some of the partnering process that we worked on to get here.
Hi, I'm Chris Colligan. I'm the Wildlife Coordinator for Greater Yellowstone Coalition. I spent about 10 years working on this project with Forest Service, Game and Fish, Wyoming Department of Transportation, as well as others, especially the local landowners. And we went through a very lengthy planning process that involved a wildlife coordinating team, as well as an overall advisory committee for this project. And we planned the 6 wildlife underpasses and 2 aquatic fish passages that are being built in. You can see behind me here, this is one of the large ungulate passages. What we did in advance of this project, and working with a bunch of local and regional partners, we placed camera traps at each of these sites and documented what kind of movement was happening. This site in particular is really important for migrating elk, mule deer, and we also saw a few moose in this corridor. We're connecting public lands to public lands here between two mountain ranges, the Gros Ventre and the Snake River Range, across the Snake River that you can see with this very busy highway that cuts through all of this important habitat. On planning, one of the things that we worked through was all of the different alternatives, and a lot of this work occurs just by looking at maps, sitting down with partners, working through the finer details to figure out what is the best location and where does the data support that collisions are occurring and where we want to improve connectivity. And this point you can see you have houses, development here to the north, development to the south. In this location we have Forest Service, as well as a really complicated geological instability area that required additional retaining walls and a lot of concrete in the ground. So this site is one of the few places in this corridor that we have public lands on both sides of the highway and of the river.
Great. Show us where we're at on the map, Chris.
Okay, we're right on this road right here. This is an access road that goes up on Forest. The wildlife crossing structure is actually right about here. There's an existing pipe that was here that was for cattle movements and for some water rights that we monitored wildlife movement through. An undersized pipe that was facilitating movement of wildlife was forced through that small pipe. We're only improving on that with a large simple span bridge that should have at least 10 foot of clearance underneath it for wildlife movement.
Great, thanks.
In western Colorado, one of our biggest safety concerns is wildlife hits. We're up here in Grand County between Kremling and Silverthorne.
It's a beautiful stretch. There's a lot of wildlife in this area, a lot of deer.
I did lose my parents on this road, in this particular stretch of highway.
In the last 10 years, we've recorded over 600 wildlife vehicle collisions along Highway 9.
The lady that hit him said that there was wildlife crossing the road, and that's why she swerved to miss the wildlife and hit them head on.
Primarily, we're talking about mule deer. We have elk and moose and black bear that also cross the highway.
In the wintertime, their habitat is on the east side of the highway, but the water for them is on the west side of the highway. And so they cross back and forth.
There's some animals during the winter that actually have daily movements across Highway 9.
This will be the project that has the first wildlife overpasses in the state of Colorado.
This project is a landmark project for wildlife, creating safe passage for wildlife.
Luckily, have a landowner along the project who wanted to do something about it, make a change, make a difference, help the community.
I'm the manager at Blue Valley Ranch. We are a 25,000 acre working ranch. We are probably the largest landowner here on the lower Blue Valley, encompassing both sides of Highway 9. With that in mind, the owner of the ranch decided to fund the money back in 2011 for the design on how to make this a safe highway for both the wildlife and for the vehicle traffic.
My understanding, it's probably one of the first partnerships in Colorado history with a local owner contributing funds to help fund the project.
CDOT in 2014 identified that we had funding that we needed to get out the door sooner. So we went to a program we titled RAMP, Responsible Acceleration for Maintenance Partnerships. And in that we did an outreach to local communities and said, are there projects or priorities that the locals would be willing to come to the table and partner with us, kind of a grant application.
We created a program called C49, which is really Citizens for a Safe Highway 9. We knew that over $9 million was going to be needed from the public side. So Blue Valley Ranch started by throwing in the first $4 million as a matching grant.
We ultimately had slightly over 40 days to raise a little over $4 million. So we had a huge challenge right off.
Literally in 40 days, we were able to show what the meeting of minds and organizations and community members could do, and it has been one of the most fantastic partnering relationships that has taken place in our county, at least.
The community outreach part has been a big component from the beginning. We wanted to educate the public about why the construction was occurring, what mitigation features were going to be designed, and how it was going to make the highway safer.
But I'd really like to thank everybody for showing up today. We've got a great crowd, and I think it just kind of represents this project. It's a true partnership between citizens and local government and CDOT and our Parks and Wildlife DOW peers.
So we pretty much broke ground on State Highway 9 on April 1st, 2015.
This project includes 11 miles of full widening and wildlife mitigation on Highway 9.
Key features you'll see along Highway 9 will be a much improved geometry of the roadway. You'll have 8-foot paved shoulders. You won't see the wildlife underpass structures, which are helping out a great deal. You'll see the 8-foot wildlife fence along the stretch of the road.
It's an 8-foot high fence, and the fence directs the animal, the wildlife, to the wildlife crossing.
And you'll see the 2 wildlife overpass structures.
Highway widening will be 12-foot lanes, 8-foot shoulders. Improved access. There are some acceleration, deceleration lanes at some of the primary accesses. Some curve flattening to bring the curves to standards, both horizontal, vertical curves. So as far as the design of the road is to bring it up to modern geometry, all the new federal standards.
Completion date for the project is July 31st, 2017, but the contractor is hoping to have everything completed ahead of schedule and being completed by November 2016, which will be outstanding.
CDOT has been wonderful. Kirkland Construction, who is the contractor on this project, everybody working together on this project and watching just how quickly and smoothly the whole project has come together has been amazing.
We're hoping that it's going to be setting a precedent for Colorado Department of Transportation and Colorado Parks and Wildlife to work together on future projects to expand this type of project around the state.
The progress and the work that's been done on this highway has been incredible. It's a safer highway, bottom line.
I think it just shows that we can do wildlife mitigation and provide safe transportation. If we can show that this is an opportunity for other agencies or the private industry to come in and help us, I think we can do good things with wildlife mitigation in the state of Colorado.
Nobody wants to hit an animal with their car, but north of Bonners Ferry, Idaho, Highway 95 was dealing with a lot of wildlife vehicle collisions. Why? Because Highway 95 slices through a big migration area and reduces wildlife movement for deer, elk, and other species. Migration corridors like this are important because they connect valuable habitats for game species like deer and elk, which are important to our communities and economy. Thankfully, Idaho saw a road safety improvement project as an opportunity to limit these collisions. In 2006, a series of 3 box culverts, each 13 feet tall and 141 feet long, were built under 1.5 miles of the highway, in a location where the road was widened and a dangerous curve was made more safe. These box culverts were flanked by a half-mile of fencing in both directions to help funnel animals under the road. Since being built, they've been working, and now, because of this project, people and wildlife are safer. One of the best things about Idaho is our fishing, a beautiful way of life that generates millions of dollars for our economy every year. But in one part of our state, some fish were having trouble. Culverts under Highway 87 near Henry's Lake, Idaho, were blocking native Yellowstone cutthroat trout from accessing critical spawning habitat. In 2006, multiple partners came together to support the Idaho Transportation Department to solve this problem. 2 bridges were built over Targhee and Howard Creeks to replace existing culverts and improve fish passage. Both were an immediate success, and the project has received a National Transportation Award. Cutthroat trout can now pass freely under the highway to support the native population of Henry's Lake. "8,000 mule deer are a force to be reckoned with, especially when their migration route cuts across your highway. And that's exactly the situation outside of Boise, one of the fastest growing regions in the country, with one of the most visited hunting units in the state. More people means more cars on the road, and as a result, Highway 21 outside of Boise became a hot spot for dangerous and costly vehicle-wildlife collisions. In 2010, Idaho Transportation Department, with support from Idaho Department of Fish and Game, city and county officials, citizens, and nonprofits, decided to fix the problem and built a wildlife underpass. This animal crossing includes 1.5 miles of 8-foot-high fencing to funnel animals under the highway, and it's been a great success. There's been a drastic decrease in collisions at this location, which has saved lives and valuable wildlife. If you love wildlife, you'll love the Lemhi River in Idaho. It provides habitat for endangered bull trout, steelhead, and spring-summer Chinook salmon, and the valley is home to pronghorn, deer, elk, and moose. The willow-lined Lemhi wanders through the sagebrush-filled valley, with Highway 28 crossing it multiple times. This overlap of river and road increases the risk of vehicle collisions with wildlife who also travel along the waterway. But the Idaho Transportation Department saw bridge replacement projects as an opportunity to help solve this issue. From 2016 to 2019, 9 bridges in the Lemhi Valley were replaced and, in the process, made it easier for both finned and furred wildlife to cross under them. Adding native vegetation, bat houses, and engineered log jams. Many different agencies collaborated to make these innovative projects a success, which has led to safer roads, a healthier river, and has given our beloved wildlife a little more room to roam.